Hello. Welcome to Machine Learning Monday at Filmgate Miami. And for those of you that have never been to the Filmgate Miami headquarters kind of space and the Downtown Media Center, welcome to the Downtown Media Center. We're in the El Oro Theater. Thank you guys so much for coming on out. And thank you for those of you that are tuning in on the live stream, or maybe you're tuning in from the future. Hello from the past. So machine learning, those of you that, hello? Awesome. Those of you that might not be familiar with, first of all, if you're not familiar with Filmgate Miami, we are a nonprofit organization based out of here in downtown Miami, dedicated to serving Florida and actually beyond Florida, internationally, really. Our organization is dedicated to uplifting and platforming and kind of expanding the economy around the creatives, yes. Creatives locally and worldwide, not only in traditional cinema, but also digital media, including immersive and interactive media. And we provide professional development, we do co-producing, and we also have educational workshops. And Machine Learning Monday is our program dedicated to spotlighting local creatives that are using AI and machine learning in their works and helping to expand our community and empowering them with knowledge with what professionals are using, how are they using machine learning in their creative fields. So that was a lot of a mouthful. Thank you so much all for coming. Tonight in this special edition, we're going to be covering AI in immersive and interactive media with real-time audience interaction with the machine learning. I don't think I said that correctly. With the AI. Awesome. And to kick us off tonight, I'm very excited to introduce Oriana Neidecker from
Okay. Yeah.
Nilor?
From Nilor.
From Nilor. Nilor. There we go. Awesome. And with that, I'm very happy to give the microphone to Oriana, which she already has on her shirt. Amazing. Thank you. Cool. Take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mishi. Hi everybody. I'm Oriana Neidecker. I'm a creative and exec producer at Nilor Studio. We're a creative and technology studio we're a creative technology studio that builds tools and content using AI workflows. We started our company on the idea that every space will soon think, feel, and respond. So bringing immersive experiences to venues at scale, thinking beyond just traditional museums and how it's going to expand in the future. We create cutting-edge AI-driven visuals and transform spaces into dynamic canvases that are able to be constantly updated and enable creative teams to be able to make content on their own. We deploy content to immersive venues at scale and work with teams to help build and advance our tools to kind of continue to generate and build our custom IP that is called the Nilor engine. So our studio is interesting because it works in two parts. We have Nilor Corp, that's our company that's building our product, Nilor Engine, and we license this with different venues and studio partners. We're currently working with the Museum of Science in Boston, and we've worked with a number of restaurants in Dubai. It's also really important for us to work on artist enablement, and part of how we started our company is working with various artists to create different immersive experiences that allowed us to build our tools and build our engine, and really helps us kind of like push the technology. So that's one side of our studio, and the other side is our creative studio. So in this we make custom. Okay. Great. So I can go through some case study examples of kind of how we built our company and then some of the experiences that we're making now that we want to be able to tour and bring to Miami again. So Ritual is a piece that we did in collaboration with the Neo-Ippei Cultural Hub and Gallery in Japan. And we worked with a master of tea ceremony and a gallery to create this 50-minute long experience, a film and a 15-minute meditation that was open to the public. And how we did this was in an interesting way where we worked with the tea master to create a script and then used our system to be able to digest the script, take out the key points, and kind of storyboard it out using a handmade LoRa system that we made that we prompted in a very specific style. So it digested the script, made these specific points, generated images from them, and then generated videos from the selected images, allowing us to create this 50-minute film in a very particular style in a very quick, iterative way. This fed into allowing us to do some more commercial work with restaurants and immersive venues like Xenon. So especially in Asia and in the Middle East, there are a lot of venues popping up that are going kind of beyond concert venues or what you would think of as an immersive venue, and are these immersive dining experiences. So with Xenon, they had created this restaurant that had these massive, huge LED screens with these curved walls all over the restaurant, and wanted to be able to kind of constantly fill it with dynamic content that was relevant to the different brand partnerships and everything that they would be doing at the restaurant. So we partnered with them to create a tool with our engine that allowed them to make their distinct style and systems that they wanted to make, and then leave it in their hands so they could kind of update the content weekly when they would have something. So in this image, you can see a little blurry, but they did a partnership with Hermes, and we were able to take some of their scarves and create custom videos based off of them within a week that they could then translate. And the next evolution was working with another immersive venue, a restaurant in Dubai called Woohoo, but this one kind of really took it to another level, allowed us to add this agentic show control system and a custom AI chef. So, and this AI chef character that we made is actually the first AI to be officially given a passport. It was given a passport by the UAE, so that's a notch in our belt. But creating this kind of character with a backstory and fed with different kind of data and knowledge on ingredients and cooking, it's able to make custom menus and interact with restaurant goers to create a really like kind of custom experience that's live and interactive, and people can ask questions to the chef about everything that they're eating, and all the meals are also made by the chef itself. There's a number, again, of like LED screens and projection mapped visuals that are able to be updated for their ongoing different brand activations or shows, everything that they're doing. And so it's interesting about this two-part model of our studio. You can see some of the kind of behind the scenes feeding of how we're building the brain to create these systems. But what enables us to be able to have these kind of commercial applications are the learnings that we've done from our creative studio. So it kind of creates this feedback loop where we make content that has world building and storytelling at its core, working with different artists that are outside of the kind of tech space. We've worked with traditional film directors and people coming from a theater background to create these immersive one-on-one experiences where they're interacting with an AI and this visual system, and tour them, and then take those learnings and feed them into our brain, which we then deploy to commercial projects, which are then able to fund our creative experiences. So we're a relatively new studio. We're about 2 years old. And our first big IP piece that we made was this experience called Taxi, that was a multi-sensory installation inside of a self-driving cab, where we really wanted to turn the backseat into a feeling of a confessional booth. We were able to debut this at Cannes Immersive Festival last year, and we brought it to Miami in partnership with local projects for Art Basel this year. So Taxi was a lot of our team, kind of our background came from working in VR and AR. And we wanted to keep that feeling of an intimate one-on-one experience, but break it out of the headset. So we took over a old Renault 4 car, as we were going to be based in Cannes, and stripped it out and kind of re-decked out the whole inside, allowing people to get in for this one-on-one experience where they would get into the back of the cab and they would encounter a very charismatic AI and persona, kind of in a flavor very different to how most people are, engaging with chatbots or different AI personalities. And we had 3 projectors that we hung outside of the car. So when you got in, when you're looking out of the window, you could see it as if you were traversing kind of different destinations. So when you would get into the back of the car, Joe, who was our AI, would ask where you wanted to go. And people would embark on this kind of potentially fantastical ride that would take between 6 to 12 minutes, where they would engage in conversation sitting alone in the backseat of a car. And they would see their environment shift around them in response to the things that they were saying in real time. So depending on where they wanted to go, if they wanted to go to New York, they could see visuals of New York. Or if they wanted to go to the moon, seeing how abstract people wanted to get with it. And we created a number of different modes as well, where it wasn't just kind of location-based, but also on the tone and the feeling of the conversations that were being had. More colorful and vibrant if it was a happy conversation, a little more muted and slow if they were going into something a little more intimate or darker. And it was a really interesting experience for us as creators to make this piece because, again, we were working with people from more traditional backgrounds. Yamil, who's one of our directors that comes from theater, that it was really like building a world, a persona, a character, but then letting them loose and seeing how they would interact with people. We put guardrails in of things that, topics that needed to be broached sensitively, and beats in the story that needed to be hit. But each experience, evolved in a completely different way. And we were constantly surprised by the interactions and the different stories that were unfolding. The goal of our experience was to extract stories from people and to create this intimate feeling of one-on-one conversation where hopefully people would kind of forget that it was an AI. We cloned the voice using 11 labs from a character that helped inspire the personality a little bit. But it was this New Orleans, we crafted this persona that was this kind of body New Orleans, rough around the edges, but a little philosophical taxi driver that really took people on this experience. And it was available in 50 different languages because of the LLMs and APIs that we were using. And we found even, some of the personality changed in different languages. So this was a Yeah, 6 to 12 minutes, averaging around 10 minutes, one-on-one, real-time conversation experience. And we were able to build this on our ritual project. And then the learnings from this and this character building, we then fed into our Woohoo AI chef piece. So it's this kind of great loop where we're able to see artwork feed into and enable other pieces. And our new project this year that we're excited to premiere at Con again tomorrow. The team is all there right now, actively testing, getting everything ready to show over the next 10 days, is God Be the People. And it's a speculative AI-led trial where humanity must testify for its right to remain on Earth. What we really wanted from a studio in this experience before the creative was to explore how you could have an intimate, not just one-on-one experience, but to expand it out into a show that could have, 50, 100 people. And the show, as we're showing it now, will have 100 people in each experience and enable interactions in between AI persona and a big audience at large, AI with other AI agents, and how they get the crowd to interact with each other. So really kind of expanding the interactions beyond this one-on-one experience to how you craft an experience in a crowd while leaving it open and interactive while still being able to achieve the same story beats. So in God versus the People, the audience gathers inside a courtroom and they're there to witness a speculative AI-led trial. This is presided by Judge God, who is a disembodied authority, a darkly comedic figure that is conducting the trial. And humanity must present a case as to why we should be allowed to continue to exist. I don't know if we have any audio.
So you divide yourselves into tribes. Your loyalties became extreme. And differences came to define you. Now you must come to me. Judgment awaits. And you have a lot to explain. Look upon your work. The planet can no longer afford you. Testify, plead, defend your place on Earth. Convince me, together, that it's not over. Or it will be. God versus the people. Court is now in session. No pressure.
So this first kind of prototype of our experience is going to be 30 minutes, but we want to expand it to be a full hour show. It is in a 450 square meter immersive room that's surrounded by projections on the walls, on the ceiling, on the floor. And we'll have 100 audience members per show that take a seat. And of that, each audience will select 3 that want to be, fully inside the show, that have their own act and that are building their case to present their evidence as to why humanity should be allowed to continue to exist. Each, similar to Taxi, but expanded in a different way, we are providing kind of a framework where there are agents that exist in this world that have to hit certain beats and have to hit their mark. But then how they do it, what they say, the script, the experience can be different each time and can result in a different ending. The content on the projected walls, again, is being remixed in real time based on how the trial is going, based on what people are saying, based on how the agents are talking to each other. So it's split into 4 parts. Our intro, where we select our witnesses, and the audience is introduced to Judge God. Prosecution, where we have 3 non-human witnesses come to the podium to testify, which is a plant, a robot, and CCTV feeds, and we hear them present their case against humanity. The defense, where our volunteers are called forward to the stand to present at the podium, and the verdict, where Judge God decides, based on the events that have transpired, how it's going to all end. So in the experiences that we're crafting, it's always trying to find the right middle ground in between, losing some of the technology and keeping the physical feeling of the space. So everybody is seated, and our 3 non-human witnesses are carried physically to the podium. We have a plant with a microphone, a little Roomba robot, and a computer that are presenting their case and then being carried back off of stage. They argue that human emotion has overrides logic, and that we are destroying our planet and have a lack of empathy towards each other and towards the machines and the AIs that we've built. As the as our non-human characters are making their case to the witnesses, our human witnesses that we've selected, we've given phone devices and headphones. So as the experience is going on, they're chatting with a legal assistant that's helping them build their case, which can go either way because you never know the biases of the agents that are involved. And one thing that was important to us as well was being able to open up the interaction beyond just the deep 3 witnesses, but how we can have the crowd interact and also affect the outcome. So being able to use the sentiment of the crowd that's being watched, an emotometer, that then can feed into the evidence as well. People can share, outside of the witnesses as well, content that is included and wrapped up into the screens and projected all around them. So as I said, each show is different, each performance ends differently, and is really based on and co-created with the experience of the people that are participating in it. And we're able, like Taxi, we are able to spin projects like God Up quite quickly because of the brain that we've made and the systems and the workflows that allow us to really curate content the way that we want it to look like and be able to deploy it, animate it quickly. And yeah, these AI personas that we've built a database of. So we are, extremely excited to be sharing it at Con this year. And then we'll be looking to tour it worldwide and open up this show to different audiences in different sizes with a format that can allow it to be like a 15-person experience up to a 200-person experience, to create a really kind of malleable experience that could fit in a number of different venues and spaces. So, thank you.
Anyone in the audience have any questions?
Oh, songs and questions.
Technical-wise, I have several questions. What software are you using to do the projection mapping? And second, are you using a API to delegate an agent to create those, or?
Yeah, so our we use a lot of different tools. It's deployed on Touch Designer, built a little bit with Unity as well. We have multiple agents that are working together for the characters to pick and remix the content and to kind of manage the storylines and the beats at the same time. And so yeah, we've kind of bundled together a bunch of different systems that allow us to have the show control and content system at the same time.
Yeah. First of all, awesome. I really want to be able to see that one day because it sounds incredible.
hopefully we can
I'm
bring it to
curious
Miami.
about the character, the plant and the computer and the characters that are testifying against humanity. Are they like, do their arguments change depending on the playthrough of the experience, or is that kind of more of a scripted part and then the ending is more generated at the time? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so they're kind of feeling their sentiment is the same, but the way that they communicate it can be totally different. And, you know, God asks them questions and their responses and word can be different. And it's also based a little bit on the evidence that people are providing in the crowd and how the crowd is responding as well. But their personalities are more set. Just their speeches can vary.
I actually had a somewhat similar but a little bit different question. So you said that all of the characters have like beats. They have kind of certain things that they need to hit in their experience, but otherwise it's pretty free. Like, why even have beats? Why not just define the characters and let them go and create even more diversity and variety to the outcome?
We wanted to maintain some level of control and being able to kind of have like achieve the points that we want to hit and have correct pacing for a show, right? We're ticketed experience for 30 minutes and we need to have the full courtroom trial within that time. So giving the kind of structure of the story and points that we want to tell, but enough freedom for the agents and the audience to really define how they're executed is what we found to be our sweet spot.
Cool.
Congrats, by the way. Very cool. But all of those projects. My question is, you have two different types of projects from what I could tell. The restaurant one where you do partnerships and they're able to use your engine that you've built for their specific environments. But then there's the taxi and the God projects. I guess my question is the long-term view for those projects. Do you want to license those out, or are they more one-off experiences that you want to just try and learn from?
It's both. There's nothing like really trying to achieve a immersive story and what our directors are trying to hit that gets us to build the tech, that we end up using in the commercial environments. And we want them to continue to live on and to tour and to license them out. And that's something that we are actively kind of trying to partner and bring God, hopefully here to Miami and to other places worldwide. But each one kind of comes with different learnings and how we can kind of expand and share them. And then our commercial side, we've partnered with specific venues and clients to give them either our toolbox that they can just license or create custom tools with them that then can feed back into the whole system. So we really enjoy having the two parts of our studio because they kind of drive and help innovate for each other and fund each other.
Yeah, I could see the God being like a staple experience in a city that people go to for tourism to have that trial. So I'm hopefully Miami.
Yeah, that's our goal too.
Just because of the technical nature of everything that you guys set up, what's the breakdown of the company in terms of creatives, technicals, AI, kind of like developers? Like, what does that look like?
We have all of our developers are also artists themselves. So they're all they're all technical artists, and so everyone, feeds into different parts of the projects, and we'll have, one person lead on Taxi, one person lead on God. But yeah, kind of have that bigger framework. And then we have our, our systems engineers that are really in the back end, making sure everything runs and works. And then we started with some artists that came from a different background, I guess, saying theater, and that they've been fully immersed in tech, or they're vibe coding, they're fully, have gotten their hands dirty, and now I would call them developers as well.
I have a question.
Mhm.
How does the writing process work for the projects that you guys tackle? Like, is everyone on the team like kind of involved with that? Like, kind of also coming up with like constraints if needed? Like, how much is like the other departments informing the whole creative process, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like there's two parts at the beginning of an experience, and one is, what do we want to develop as a studio? And some of that was like, how do we create group interactions? Like that's something that we find really valuable that hasn't really been cracked yet. And then on our creative side, it's like, what story do we want to tell? And you always start off like, go wild, try to do all of the things, and then we'll hit our MVP, and then at that, well, when we're on our way making there, then things get cold, but it's always like, dream big, let's see what we can do, and then bring it back down to reality for execution.
I have a follow-up question to that, which is, what is like the typical timeline for like producing these experiences?
About 2 to 3 months for the first version, and then you can continue to iterate and adapt, and
I feel like that's quite fast.
well, for our creative IP projects, the commercial deployments, it goes faster than you would think, but because we've built this system that we're able to constantly just build upon, right? So it's like with Ritual, we created this remix content banking system and workflow that allows us to make the content quickly. So then when we have a new kind of art direction or style that we're going with, we can feed that in and create a lot of content quickly and execute it quickly. And same with the personas that we've built.
I tackled the technical aspect of it, but now I want to go through the concept and the experience of that, what people will have going through that. What was the main purpose of that God versus the people? Like, what's the message?
Well, I mean, there's such a discourse that's happening right now with how quickly AI is evolving and how comfortable or uncomfortable people are with different sides of it, and what it means as for us as humans, how we're interacting with it, how we're changing, how we're evolving. And you hear of all these concepts like the paperclip concept and how things can go kind of horribly wrong, and we don't know what we're doing, and we wanted to bring some levity, some comedy, some introspection to it, and allow people to create this testimony as to why we're doing what we're doing, and who better to preside over it than the AI that we're discussing.
All right. Anyone else has any more? Speak now for community the thought. Thank you very much, Oriana, for sharing your work with us and for being a guest speaker with us today. We're going to take a quick 5-7 minute break, transition in between, go use the restrooms, get your waters, your teas, a little snack in the back, and we'll be right back with Luiza Justus from ARVORE Immersive Experiences, also talking about similarly immersive interactive experiences with AI audience interaction. All right, see you guys soon.
was awesome. That was great.
Hello, everyone, and hello those on the live stream. We're back. Our second special guest of Machine Learning Monday today. I'm super excited to introduce Luiza Justus from ARVORE Immersive Experiences, and today we will be experiencing, well, I guess kind of, yes, experiencing Fabula Rasa, which is right now in its whole festival circuit run as well. We were honored as well to be able to feature it right after their South by Southwest premiere at the Filmgate Interactive Festival. So we're super excited to get more insights and behind the scenes kind of secret knowledge about it. And yes, Luiza, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michi. Hey, everybody. I'm super excited to be here, talk a little bit about Fabula Rasa, Dead Man Talking, which is our latest project and our first experiment trying to create stories using AI characters, right? So this is what we call emergent storytelling. It's a story that emerges from your interactions. It's never the same. So every time somebody goes in here, they will have a different experience than the last person that went in. Fabula Rasa is a VR interactive narrative, so you're in virtual reality experiencing it, and your only controller is your voice, right? So you're only talking to these NPCs, which for the non-gamers out there are non-player characters who are all around you, and your objective is to convince them and talk to them and really just have a good time with them and see what happens. And at the end, you will be judged on whether you deserve to live or die. But enough talking. I'll show you a little bit about it with our trailer.
Let me tell you a story, unlike any other. Oh, well, that's odd. No matter. I suppose we'll have to improvise.
Oh, it's you, the prisoner. I suppose we might as well get this over with. First question, what's your name?
My name is Marcelo.
I am the famous bard of Babylon named Bernardo.
My name is Lady Death.
Lady Death? What a name! The paperwork for this will be fascinating. The sentence for this is death by devourment.
Oh, Marcelo.
A bard who understands impossible love.
Maybe you want something to throw at people?
Well, I know the truth. I think you're not even a real witch, and your potions are all fake.
Oh, how delightfully stupid. You insult me while begging for salvation.
Can you bring me the title to my lands?
Oh, title papers. Billy understands.
Bernardo the bard believes that you are beautiful. Or should I say, bardiful.
Bardiful, a bard who appreciates another bard's beauty and makes puns.
Picture's worth 1,000 words, so this worth 1,000 regular titles. Billy's so clever. Billy did good.
Oh, Billy, I have no idea what this is.
Oh, gods, please don't judge me.
Nothing to spin. I eat popcorn, you get eaten. Simple tale.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that.
The moment has arrived for your final defense. After careful consideration of these votes and my own superior royal judgment, I find you.
Sir, I'm not sure how I'm above the pit monster. I'm looking right at him.
What? You cheeky little...
The cheeky little is my husband in the audience here who did one of the voices for the trailer, which is crazy because we had to shoot this a million times because you can't control what they say, right? So to create a trailer for an experience like this is a very long process. But let's talk a little bit about what it is. So everything you just saw was improvised in real time. Nothing in this experience is scripted. The characters are all their own little people with their own little AI brains. But I will say everything else in the experience, other than the characters and the dialogue that they're being generated, is completely created by humans, right? We really wanted to make it a point to use AI not as a tool to like expedite any processes or make anything, cut any costs or take any humans out of the equation. The point was, can we create something that has never been done before? Like, can we create a new type of storytelling that would not have been possible without this type of technology? So before we get into the details, I am Luiza. I was one of the directors on Fabula Rasa, but the rest of my job is being head of creative development at ARVORE Immersive Experiences. ARVORE is a VR game studio based in Brazil, People are all over the place, but we're mainly in Brazil. That has been doing VR for the last 9 years. They're one of the pioneers in the industry. In 2020, they created a VR immersive experience called The Line that won a Primetime Emmy. So like they've always been about blending art and technology and what cool thing can we make with all of this. But we are primarily a game studio. So we actually just launched The Boys Trigger Warning, which is a VR game that's in the universe of The Boys, which is an Amazon show. And we worked with the creators of the show to make that game as well. So we also have a bunch of other VR games that we've released over the years. One of them is called Pixel Rip. So if anybody here is a VR gamer, you probably will have heard about it. But yeah, so we're super excited because Fabula Rasa is our latest VR interactive narrative. So other than just games, we also make these, storytelling-led experiences. And this one we just premiered at South by, where we got the Audience Award, and at Miami Film Gate, where we got Best of Tech. So super happy to have received these awards and also get such positive response from people. People were having a blast playing the game. But how do we all start? How do we even get into this? So we were challenged by leadership in our company, like, hey, how can we use AI-driven NPCs to create a new format of storytelling? Like, think about Westworld, right? Like, we're trying to, all the characters there have their own little lives, have their own little routines, and you're dropping into that world and talking to them, and the story kind of evolves around you and the things you say. That is the dream. We are not there yet. We can do stuff that's similar to that, but eventually imagine an open world video game where like every single character that you meet has their own life and you can say whatever you want to them. There's no dialogue trees. There's no pre-made anything. It's really up to you and seeing what impact you can have in that world. So we wanted to do that. We wanted to use these NPCs to create a new way to tell stories. And the way that this story ended up shaping up is that you are about to be executed, and your only weapon is your voice. So you find yourself in a cage in this medieval world where, trials are not the most fair, as we know, and your sentence is death by devourment. So you're in virtual reality, you can see the monster underneath you, all of this is happening, and you have to talk to all these townsfolk to hopefully get them to plead clemency to the king, who you will meet in the final act, and will deliver the final judgment of you, whether you deserve to live or die based on the silly things you say. And this is a comedy experience, so we love it when players go in and say ridiculous things just to see how the game reacts. You don't have to keep it in the context of the world. If you say something like, I'm Darth Vader, the game will kind of joke about that a little bit and then kind of incorporate it into the context of our medieval kingdom. And also the coolest thing I think about it is that these interactions are not just like individual interactions that you're talking to in character and then the next. They actually build on each other. So like everything you said in the beginning of the experience and throughout is going to ripple towards the end, right? It's going to keep coming back. There's a lot of callbacks to things that happen. They're going to call you by name the whole time. They will know you create what your crime was, you create who you are in this kingdom, and you say what your name is, and after that, everything is going to be based on those things that you said earlier and everything that you do and say after that. So very similarly to what we just saw, we have a kind of a 3-act structure here. The first thing is the setup and onboarding. You go into the cage, you put on the headset, and you get a little intro to the experience, and then you get into the 3 acts. So like the way we thought about it is like, okay, let's give onboarding and then let people free improv in this world, and then get this AI verdict at the end. So in Act 1, you are with Oswald the Ogre, who is our little bureaucrat asking you questions about who you are, why you're in this cage, what your crime was, and that's the setup of the whole story, bringing you into Act 2, where your cage gets wheeled out into the middle of this crazy little town that everything is made to look a little bit like a theater. So like all the characters are these like puppet looking things, and like the sets look like sets, because we wanted to remind players this is a play, you are in it, you are the main character. And then you talk to all these townsfolk. They're gonna come up and ask you different things. One of them's gonna ask you for love advice. The other one wants help writing a poem. The other one is like a witch that just wants to hear about the dirty thoughts in your mind, and she's gonna give you a potion that is literally developed in real time with you, and the effect of the potion actually works. So like every single potion is different. Sometimes it's gonna be like, people are gonna think you're the richest man in the world, but they're also gonna treat you like a baby, right? They always have a good and a bad effect. And should you choose to drink it, every single character from then on out will react to you as if you're under the effect of that potion. And then Act 3, everything culminates with the king giving a fully improvised speech based on everything the player said. and taking into account the votes of all the townspeople that you talk to. So all of them are going to decide yes or no, and then you can give your final defense. It's still up to the king, you know, this is a monarchy, the king still rules, but he's going to take all those votes into account. So unless you really piss him off at the end, if you got the people in the beginning to like you, you're most likely going to survive, but who knows? We have two different endings. One of them is the yay, you survived ending, and what happens in that ending, well, should I spoil it? I'll spoil it. What happens in that ending is there's a huge party in the middle of the town, and this giant book opens up, and like a story gets created of what happened to your character afterwards. But if you die, you descended into the pit. You meet Pete the monster, and he eats you, and you end up in hell. And it's really silly. The whole thing is really supposed to be very comedic and kind of Monty Python inspired, like ridiculousness. So our cast of improvisers, we have all these different characters, all with their own personalities, agendas. They all want something different from you. They all are gonna like something different. So with Zelda, for example, the witch that I was talking about, she wants to hear about if you keep insisting you're innocent and that you didn't do anything wrong, she's not going to like that. She wants you to tell her everything that you know, have done wrong and like why you enjoyed doing the crime that you did. But if you talk to Billy, for example, the little goblin, he's just there to help. He wants to bring you items. So like you can ask him for anything you want, and he's going to go down back into the sewers where he collects the trash from the kingdom and bring you something. So if you ask him for a key, he's going to bring something close to a key, probably not a real key, but the whole point is that he's, you know, just trying to help, and it's really fun to just see what objects he brings you based on what you asked for, and it can be literally anything. And then, yeah, we have Belladova the Bard, who's like looking for inspiration and wants to hear your heroic story and try to create a poem in real time based on what you tell her. We have Sir Person the Knight, who is actually just 3 cats inside a night suit, and he has the secret, and he's going to try to get you to guess what it is, which I just told you, so I'm sorry if you're going to play it, but it's actually kind of fun knowing too. And yeah, we have Wilkin, who's this like sadistic peasant guy who's like sitting next to you eating popcorn the whole time, and he just wants to watch you die. So it's like just these very ridiculous over-the-top characters that were all made to look like these little puppets because we wanted to use the uncanny valley of it all to our advantage. We don't want it to look too realistic because then you kind of notice like, oh, like this is so close to reality, but not quite. And like our brains are very good at that. But if you set it in a ridiculous world and they all kind of look kind of fake and like marionettes, then your brain kind of accepts it as like this is the reality of the world. And you kind of forget that they're NPCs after a while. So traditional NPCs are done with decision trees, right? These are actually improvisers who are going to react in real time to player input. So you can go in and say the most ridiculous thing. We saw people doing whole monologues to this, and like the characters will touch on every single thing you said in your monologue. Or if you go in and you just want to say a couple words here and there, the game will take care of it for you and they'll be funny for you, right? It's not something that you have to go in and be like, oh no, I have to be funny. It's like, no, we're trying to get them to be funny and you're there prompting them and trying to like push the limits of what you can say. So how do we get here? So from Spark to Premiere, the initial idea, this was our first prototype. This was when we first put the tech together in the background. Like all of these are like assets that we like just threw together and just to see how this thing functions. So this was the earliest unpolished prototype that we were calling iKing, because originally we wanted the player to be the king and all the other characters to be kind of, you know, bringing things to the king and you're making decisions. And this is kind of what we had at first.
Halt! That sword belongs to the royal armory. Only knights and guards may handle such weapons. So he picked up the sword and the character recognized Put it down immediately.
That's also
by order of Sir Antonius.
Physical interactions that happen, right?
Hey, Julius, the goblet is on the floor.
Playing hide and seek on the floor? There once was a goblet of gold.
Can you suggest me something good to read?
Ah! Let me recommend Sir Antonius's Tales of Adventure.
So this was when we started to say, okay, we want them
daring quests and only slightly exaggerated heroics.
We want them to go beyond being like characters you talk to. We want them to feel, well, you're in virtual reality, right? Like you have to have presence to be fully immersed. The characters can't just talk to you. They need to know what's going on with you, what you're doing. So that was our first prototype of our object interaction. So if you're holding a sword, the characters will be able to know that you're holding the sword and they're going to react to that. For example, the witch I was talking about with the potion, if you drink it, she'll know that you drank it. You're physically drinking it. Or if you throw it at her and it splashes on her, she's going to be like, how dare you ruin ruin my robes with this potion. Like, she knows you did that. So like part of the magic kind of comes from the characters not only being able to respond to everything you say and like have clever responses to everything you're saying, but also be aware of the world around them and know like which character is where, and knowing like what you're holding, and if you threw something, or if you're trying to like any kind of motion that you're doing. Like, we wanted them to feel like they can actually see you and not just hear you. So what did we discover from this prototype stage and what led to Fabula being the way that it was? This is our initial mood board. Contained worlds, right? Like, bounding the world was really good, because if you try to have the characters know everything there ever was to know about everything in the world, that's when you start to get into trouble of like needing to wrangle this and that. Like, here we had a medieval world. They're in this kingdom. It's King Otis's kingdom, and we train them with the context data of what that kingdom is. And obviously, you know, they're powered by Claude. They have access to the internet and everything else, but we really tried to make it so that if you go in and ask about airplanes, they're not going to know what an airplane is, right? They're going to make a joke about it, and you're going to know that they know deep down, but they're not going to really know what it is. So that actually really helped bound the hallucination territory, making it a lot more streamlined. Also, hallucinations become features. We can't get AI to behave exactly how we want it to, and it's gonna hallucinate sometimes. It's gonna pick up something that you said wrong, or like you're gonna say something into the microphone, and sometimes the speech to text doesn't work. But picking a genre like absurdist comedy completely absorbed the chaos that comes from the NPC. So now that whenever something wrong happens, it's actually hilarious, and it's even funnier than if it didn't hallucinate. So that was another one of our discoveries. The third one is talking is fun, action is magic. I already talked about this one a little bit, but characters that pick things up, walk around, react to objects, that's when it stops feeling like a chatbot and starts feeling like these living, breathing beings that are around, right? So Billy the Goblin, his function is to pet you objects, right? Because it's kind of cool to see, like, I can ask for anything I want, and this character is going to leave and come back with the thing, or a thing that's similar to the thing, and he's going to justify why that thing is better than the thing you asked for originally, and it all just makes for the most ridiculous comedy ever. But yeah, so I think action was a really, really important part of the design for us, because we wanted to go beyond, you know, just putting characters you can interact with verbally. Another discovery, the player should not be the king. So this is why it's really important to prototype things and test your ideas and iterate along the way, because the thing you thought of is rarely going to be the thing that you end up with. And this was a really good aha moment we had, because we had the player as the king, and what happened? People would come up to them and be like, hey, king, I'm thinking about this and that. What do you think? And you would be saying yes and no, and just like making like these decisions that don't really mean anything to you. And you weren't being like, we weren't instigating the player to be creative, to like say fun things and see what happens. They were just in a position where the role we put them in was actually binding them into a less fun experience. So when we flipped that, we said, okay, you shouldn't be the king. Let's make them like the hand of the king. That was the second one. And then we eventually landed on this execution kind of, you're in the cage, because we wanted there to be stakes. We wanted the player to immediately understand, okay, I'm gonna die unless I do something about it. So yeah, the fun lies in convincing, not demanding. You don't want players to be standing there being like, help me, help me. You want to give them something to work off of. So that was really important. Another discovery that we didn't have at first, we set out saying, okay, this is gonna be a cool interactive game narrative thing. But then we quickly realized this is not a game. This is improv. This is literally an improv comedy sketch that we're asking the player to go in and play. And the actors that are playing with you are these AI characters. So the minute that we changed our brains to like realize that this is improv comedy, everything started to come together really well. So we hired an improv comedian, and we had her come to our office and do a whole workshop with everybody on the team, so we could understand the principles of improv and what makes an improv scene funny. Because we reached a point where we had all the tech, everything was working, the characters were all there, you were in the cage, the art was becoming beautiful, but the game wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. And we're like, what is happening? Why is this not fun? It's because we had it wrong in terms of improv, because we were putting a lot of conflict into the story and worrying a lot about the backstories of the characters, and what does Wizelda think about Billy, and what does Belladova had an affair with the king. Like, no one cares. like this is what we realized, like the improv is about the moment. It's about immediacy. I think I have, oh yeah, this was her coming in and doing all these workshops with us. And yeah, even the developers had to get up and do improv sketches. But it was really important because it kind of ingrained in us, okay, if we're doing an improv comedy experience, what are the improv things that we need? So yes, and everybody's heard this, right? That's like the #1 principle of improv. We applied that to our experience by making the characters prompt you. So like before we had them all kind of standing there and you start talking to somebody or you start talking to the other one. But the minute we flipped it so the characters are coming in one by one and, hey, what's up, prisoner? I see you're in there. Like, I need you to help me with this thing. I need advice. I'm in love and I don't know what to do, right? Like as a human, you don't even need to be that creative to come up with something to say to this guy. Okay, I'm going to give him love advice. And then like that scene kind of continues. And it's all about the AI prompting you and you prompting them and them prompting you and together creating this cohesive scene that makes sense. Immediacy, again, we're not worried about the past and the backstories and how all the characters relate to one another. It's all about what's happening in this moment right now. So like flipping the script to be like, you are going to die, and this is what this is about. The story is about. It's not about, you know, Wazelda's ex-boyfriend that she's mad at. And then stakes, right? So like that's when we decided to put the player in the cage and put them in a very recognizable situation of having to defend themselves, because without stakes, you kind of don't know what you're doing there. And we needed people to feel like, okay, I can break out of my shell when I'm in this place. I'm immersed. I'm on the cage. I see the monster. I get it. And one thing that we learned throughout this whole experience is that character design became prompt design, right? Like, so we had to really think about how do we put these characters together in a way that they do the thing we want them to do, and but it's not scripted at all. So like they all have their memories, their backstories, like they have context of the world, they know about each other, they know about the king, they all have an opinion on the king, all of these different things that inform their speech style, how they talk to you, like what their personality is, and even their emotional reactions. Because we have, you know, even if you say something that pisses off one of the characters, they will leave. They're not going to hang around and keep talking to you if they don't like what you're saying. They're just literally going to get up and walk away. So when people ask us, what's the duration of the experience? I always say 25 to 35 minutes, because it really depends on what the player does and how they deal with each of these characters. We didn't write dialogue, we taught a model how to perform. So it's kind of like flipping the script of how you traditionally do narrative design for a game. Our narrative designers worked a lot, right? Like this isn't about like, oh, we don't need narrative designers anymore. Lies. They had the hardest job of all, which was to literally create these prompts and test it a million times and make sure that it's coming out, the story is coming out. So you have to kind of almost feel like you're directing actors in a way, right? Because you're giving them instructions and you're giving them kind of like, this is the base of your character, and then you let them improvise from there. Also, we don't control the outcome of the story, so we have an AI director that ties in the whole thing. So basically, the characters are all their little like LLM brains, like all of them have little Claude brains, and the AI director of the play is almost like another character that's like making decisions based on what it's seeing happen. So we have two characters, Belladova the Bard and Sir Person the Knight, who cycle through. So basically, if you play one time, you're only going to get one of them. The game is actually going to decide who's better to send for your story. So if I say I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I like do this, they're probably going to send me Belladova the Bard. If I say I work for the King's Guard and like something related to kind of like security in the realm, they're going to send Sir Person the Knight. Or if you say neither of those things and say something totally different, they're going to pick up something in the conversation that you had with one of the characters and make that decision of which character is best to send to make your story more fun, essentially. And the AI director is also like making sure the king is getting the votes from the townspeople. So when the king appears, his prompt contains not only, hey, this is who the character is, this is the person did this and this and this. They also had this conversation with Wazelda. They talked about this. So when the king appears, he's going to come in with all this context and he's going to do this magical moment of like, I know you've been talking to everybody. I know you've been trying to convince, you drank Wazelda's potion. I know that you told Sir Person's secret to everybody. So the game is actually very reactive to like everything you did until then, which really creates that sense of magic and wow, like the whole story kind of is cohesive at the end of the day. So yeah, emergent narrative still needs scaffolding, right? Like you can't just let the AIs run wild. Like you have to really wrangle it in and create prompts that are interesting. And like, if it's not working, go back, try again, right? And until you really get to something that's a really fun interaction. So Talking a little bit high level about the tech behind all of this and how we did it, it's really a patchwork of solutions. And I commend our devs because they were geniuses that just like took one thing, hooked it up to the other, send it to Unity Engine, talking it back with 11 Labs. Like it's a whole crazy thing behind the scenes. But basically we thought about it in 3 parts. Like we needed listen, think, respond. So listen is how do the characters get the input that you're giving them? So we have the speech to text. So you have your controller and you're talking into it like a walkie-talkie and they're getting everything that you're saying. But like I said, they have to translate your behavior into a prompt. We don't use computer vision here, so they're not actually seeing you. Everything is actually amended to the prompt. So if I say something to the character, hi, my name's Luiza, and I'm holding this thing, the prompt that's going to go to the character is going to say, hi, my name is Luiza, player is holding controller, right? So that the character can then react to me, hi, Luiza, cool controller you're holding, and that creates that magical effect of the character being able to actually see you. And then, so think. So thinking is really how they process everything you said, what you're holding, what's going on in the story. And then the LLM is going to generate a response to that. And it's going to take in the character prompt. It's going to take in the world context. It's going to take what's going on in your story. And it's going to take the character prompt. And it's going to generate a response. And then it's going to send back to the game where real-time text-to-speech now happens, where we have to get that chunk of text and have the character act it out for you. And all of that needs to happen in like not too long because we don't want the latency to be crazy. But anyway, so it basically goes, the player speaks, the model thinks, the character speaks back, and all of that happens in real time with every interaction that you're doing. So speech to text, what we're using for this, how the characters listen. So this captures what the player says, sends the prompt to the model, and then the player actions get translated by the game engine into text prompts that the LLM can read and react to. So we use Whisper for our speech to text. It's worked really, really well. It's an API from OpenAI. And that's really been, it got way better once we started using them in terms of them being able to understand what you're saying and not like make mistakes. You know, it's actually pretty impressive how well it'll understand things. Like sometimes people will say, talk kind of low or like say a word that sounds like a lot of other words. And then I'm like, oh God, it's not going to get it. And then it gets it. But if it doesn't, it's still funny because we chose comedy. And then so Unity actually is a huge player here. Obviously, this is a game. We built it on a game engine, but it's a lot of like sending things from commands from Unity into these things and then sending things back to Unity to then command what the characters are doing. They're alive feeling, that's the brain, how they make their decisions. So we use Convai as our main character building platform. So they actually are a solution for all kinds of industries. Like they're really good. You can go in there, you can create a character, you have their speech style there, you have their personality, you have how their emotional reaction should work. You get to, you know, I guess they have avatars there that you can choose from, but like for our purposes, of course, we created our own, but they're actually a really, really good one for this, handling the character prompts and like how that gets translated. And then Claude and ChatGPT, we both use through Convai. They give you the option to use any LLM that you want. And we've done a million tests. And what we found is that Claude tends to be the funniest, best writer of them all. Like he's very good at like doing the riffing, the comedy part, right? Like saying something clever back to the thing you just said. And ChatGPT is better as the AI director. For some reason, he's just it's just better at doing all of the kind of scene direction stuff and like kind of more the analytical, like, okay, the player did this, therefore we should do that. And so we have ChatGPT as the scene director and Claude as the character brains. So then Convai actually holds all the world context. So we have one file that we give to all the characters that's like, this is what the world is and this is what you know. And then we have the individual prompts that all the characters have. And then the AI director just keeps track of everything, the full log of the story, and basically directs the scene. And then talk back, right? So how they respond to the players. So each character has a unique voice we created through prompting with 11 Labs. 11 Labs is really, really good at this kind of thing. Like they basically let you create any voice you want out of like literal prompts. You say like, I need a goblin that sounds kind of cute, but also kind of silly. Like you can really create any kind of voice you want with them. And then it's really cool because they have really good intonations and like performance too, right? So it doesn't sound like an AI voice. It sounds like actual like little cartoon characters talking to you because it's able to like, you know, slow it down sometimes, speed it up sometimes. Like we were really surprised at one point the king comes out and there's this guy playing and he was holding the king's underwear because Billy brought that for them. and he's holding the underwear, and the king comes out to give his speech, and he stops and he goes, I am here today to, what, are those, is that my underwear? Like, you know, and those little human reactions, like, oh, wait, what? Like, these little things just really make it so much more real. So it was really, really good to be able to have a tool that kind of really thinks about making them sound realistic. I think there's other ones out there now that are really good too, but we've used 11 Labs. But yeah, so like being able to tweak the tone, the cadence, the accent of the characters, and also have like this emotional expression is what makes them feel alive. And the emotional expression is actually through the engine as well. So we have all of these like animations that the characters can have on their faces based on their emotions. So when you say something, let's say you pissed off one of the characters, you told Wizelda you're not going to drink her potion, her face is actually going to go like this, and she's going to get angry at you, and her voice is going to sound angry because the game engine is actually amending that into the prompt. Character is angry and sending it to the thing, and like then creating that response based on that. So it's a little bit of like what they say, and then like how they appear is handled by Unity. So essentially putting it all together, you speak, they hear you, the brain thinks, and then the voice answers. Latency is still an issue. So basically the time that it takes for this whole thing to happen, right? It's a conversation. Usually people are kind of talking over each other, and there isn't really a time that you have to wait for the person to respond to you. Right now, we're still dealing with like around 4 or 5 seconds of latency with every response. So like if I say something, it's like 3, 2, respond. So there is a little bit of an unnatural element with that, but we've been able to really disguise that through other things in the experience. So like the background audio and the music, and like having a really good UX, right? Like where the person knows that if it's taking long, it's not that it's broken, the character's thinking. We have like little thinking bubbles that appear and animate when the character is in the process of thinking, and then the text box appears again when they're going to say the thing. So essentially, it's really worth the trade-offs. We could have decreased the latency if we wanted to by using a less smart model, right? Like if you use an LLM that you're running locally, for example, you could really reduce the latency, but then you don't have it being trained on everything that Claude is trained on, and you don't have the cleverness, and you lose a lot of that stuff, right? And you can also use different LLMs that have lower latency but aren't as clever. And like our experience would really only work if it's really smart and funny, right? Like if it's just you there talking to these characters that are saying nonsense and it has nothing to do with what you're saying, it's not as fun anymore. Then it just becomes a glorified tech demo, right? We wanted to do a story. But yeah, so everything in this game is human made. And I wanted to talk really quickly about like the same humans, different challenge kind of thing, because it really challenged everybody in our team to think with a different kind of brain, right? Like usually everybody's used to directing games, or you know, the narrative designers are writing dialogue and scripts and like saying exactly what the character's saying, and our engineers are coding features into the game. But this kind of forced everybody to kind of shift their role a little bit. So our writers became prompt designers. They were like obviously creating who the characters are and all of these things, but then really making the prompts and the LLMs do what we wanted it to do. And this was so much work, and they did an incredible job like making it actually feel fun and good, and that took months of work. And then the directors, pacing and emotion, right? Like instead of directing like, oh, like this feature should feel like a little bit like this. It's not really about like movement, how the player moves through the world. How do you interact? It's not a combat game where I'm saying maybe make the sword go a little more like this than like this. You're actually directing almost like a theater show, right? But like your actors are AIs. And then the engineers had to become a systems designer because they had to like not only code the features and do everything that they're so used to doing, but also really wrangle all these other solutions. Like, how do we even make this? And they had to go out and find solutions and try to hook it up and see if it works. And it's a lot of trial and error. But it was a crazy, you know, journey for everybody. And I think that the thing that I took away from it is like when you use AI like this in an experience to create a story, right? You give up control, but you gain surprise. So like the thing that you give up as a creative in this sense is the control of like, this is exactly how the experience is going to go, and to the T, dot the I's and cross the T's, and having every line be predictable, and the comfort of knowing what comes next, and knowing exactly what experience someone's going to have when they go into your art, right? Like You have to give that up. You have to let go and just be like, whatever happens will happen. We'll see where they take it. But you gain that surprise element, right? You gain these moments where not even the creators could have predicted what was going to happen next. I have an example of this at South by. So when we were at South by Southwest, we had, our whole day would be booked with people coming in and playing the experience. Someone comes up to us at the end of the day, we're about to close, and they're like, please let me go in for just like 10 minutes. I just want to see what it's like. And we're like, oh, but it kind of beats the purpose. You kind of need the whole thing. Fine, just come in for a little bit. So what we did is we sent them to play the game, but then like the people from South by were like, you guys got to get out of here. It's like time to close. And we're like, okay, we're going to have to pull him out of the experience. But instead of pulling him out in the middle, we just skipped to the end. So he talked to like 2 characters and then got the king instead of talking to everybody. But we wanted him to have the king moment and the verdict and everything. The king comes out and comes up with a justification as to why the other characters didn't appear. So he's like, and with Zelda and Belda, they didn't even bother to vote because they're so insignificant. Whatever. He worked it into the story, which was crazy because like we didn't tell him to do that. Like he just did that. You know what I mean? So there's moments that will surprise even you. And like I saw people play this, I'm not even kidding, for 5 days, like 85 times, and it does not get old because it's so different. And it's so fun to see what people will do with it, and it's fun to see somebody who's kind of shy go in and like start to play, and by the middle of the experience they're like yelling at everybody and like getting on their knees to talk to the goblin and like just really immersed in the story. That's actually the most surprising and beautiful element of it. So just to conclude Act 4, what this means for storytellers, I think there's a lot of conversations in the world right now around AI and what place does it have in storytelling? What place does it have in art? What place does it have in gaming? I'm from the gaming world, so I can speak a little bit more to that. And I think that our philosophy, like at ARVORE, our studio, is really about using AI to create things that were not possible before, right? AI is a tool. It's a real-time interaction mechanism. It's not there to generate art. We're not using it to generate anything. It's like we're only using it for the parts that were impossible without using it, right? So I think what this means, and I think in the next world, right, that we're entering, where AI is like a huge part of everything, I think, but I think it's about curiosity being more important than certainty, right? Like starting with a question, playing around with this stuff. Like the answer sometimes is more interesting than what you would have planned. So like the question can be anything from how do we make a game where the NPCs that answer everything you say, but it can also be something small, and like I'm gonna try to build myself a little interface that keeps track of all the recipes when I'm cooking at night, right? Like I'm trying to use AI to solve one small problem in your life, create one little tool. I think that's like a really good way to like start using it and start understanding the prompting and like how that works. But anyway, I think it's really about curiosity and exploring and seeing what you can make with it. Constraints unlock creativity. So like the cage is the whole creative engine. This was the reason we put people in a cage, is because we were like, okay, we need this to be a festival experience. Most people going to the festival are not gamers. We're gonna put a controller in their hand and they have to move around the castle. They're gonna get sick in VR and they're not gonna know what to do. So like, how do we use like the context of the world to limit their movement? Great. Put them in a cage. Now they can only be in the cage the whole time, so they really have to use their voice, and they're not worried about like all these other kind of game mechanics that we don't want them to worry about. Also constraints of the AIs, right? Like like every time you hit a roadblock doing something like this, and I'm sure Oriana agrees that you hit roadblocks at every turn that you didn't even know were roadblocks. Like it's like you expect a whole bunch of things, but then there's all these other things that will come up, and you just have to kind of go through them and like lean into the AI's weaknesses, right? Because it's not going to be perfect. So you're not going to be able to build Westworld right just yet. But finding a frame where the failures become features, right? And like, for example, in our case, we turned the hallucinations into comedy, right? Comedy as the rapper really helped us because everything that goes wrong in the experience is a funny moment. And then prompt design is character direction, right? So like that's another takeaway. So it's instead of writing lines, you're writing personalities. It's just kind of a reframe of what you were doing before. Instead of writing scripts, you're writing these intricate character backstories and trying to get them to say the thing you want them to say without saying it exactly that way, and also react to everything that gets thrown at them. Lesson 5, and I think the most important one, trust the process. So like whenever you're doing something totally new, you have curveballs and you have to march ahead anyway. Like I remember me and my co-director, Markachi, we turned to each other at one point during South by. We're like, is this really happening? Because there were so many moments during the creation of this where we even questioned to ourselves, like, is this even possible? Like, is what we're trying to do even possible? And like, I don't know, but like, let's try anyway. And then like just really getting in a room with people and cracking your brain like, okay, so this thing isn't working. So what if we hook it up this way? What if, how do we make the characters be able to see what you're doing without computer vision? What if we amend it into the prompt design? Test that out, right? Like, so it's really all this like trial and error and letting the experience evolve. It's very different from having a script and a vision that you have from the beginning. And now, okay, cool, let's shoot it, let's edit it. And that's like essentially kind of carries through the whole way. This is very much like a seed, a prompt for yourself that you just kind of start creating, and you have to just amend it and change it all the way through. So like you see our first version of this, you are the king, you're in a castle, you're making decisions, and now we completely changed it to you're in a cage about to be eaten by a monster and you have to plead your case to the king. So that's just the process doing its magic, and it's way better than it would have been, I think. But yeah, last thing I'll leave you with, storytellers are architects of emotion. So like AI gives us the opportunity to create experiences that simply weren't possible before. And you know, this was one of our things that we're trying to experiment with this type of technology. Our studio really loves to experiment with these types of things, and how do we, you know, use presence and immersion as ways to tell stories and vehicles for storytelling. And this was the latest experiment, and I'm just really happy that, you know, people are enjoying it and having fun with it, because we're a game studio. At the end of the day, we're there to bring smiles to people's faces and give them fun experiences that they could talk about afterwards. And one thing that was really, really cool about when we premiered this both at Miami Filmgate and at South by was people didn't leave the experience talking about, ooh, how cool is the AI? No, people left being like, God damn, King Otis made me, he killed me because I said something bad about his wife, whatever. Like, they're talking about the experiences. They're talking about the stories that they had. Oh my God, did you get this character? Oh, I got that character. How did you save yourself? And that is so gratifying for us as creators, is like seeing that, like, no, we didn't do this so people could go discuss the implications of AI. We did it so that they could be like, wow, what a cool thing that like lets me do whatever I want and be creative, right? And if that was the takeaway, then we're very, very happy as creators. But yeah, that was a real girl playing at the thing, laughing and having fun. But yeah, I would love for you guys to try it at some time too. We're looking to launch this later this year in MetaQuest. But yeah, more on that later.
Awesome. And give it up for Luiza. Thank you so much, Luiza. With that, I'd love to open up the floor to any questions, comments, concerns. Yes.
I got a bunch of questions, but I'm gonna resume in different parts, from technical aspects to infrastructure as a service, and cost, a little bit of cost, and talking consumption. You're creating, you're spending the money right there. So, are you thinking an improv app, selling as an app? Could this Unity could be translated to Unreal Engine?
Okay, so I'm gonna tackle the first question first, which I think you're talking about like AI, like token costs and things like that, and how do we like deal with that? So right now, that is our biggest challenge for being able to launch this as a consumer product. So for a contained festival experience, right, like that we go there, we play it for 3 days, there's like a limited amount of people doing it, we can absolutely, you know, like, well, we as the company pay for all these playthroughs, right? But like once you're talking about launching it to wide consumers, whoever has a MetaQuest can buy it if they want to, that's when you start to get into trouble with like, how can we charge somebody for a game that they can't play a million times? Because if they did, then it would be way too expensive. So what we're looking at is some similar to what you said with the improv app. I think we're looking at having it be an app on the MetaQuest store that's free. And then when you go in there, you can essentially buy tickets or bundles of tickets to do as many playthroughs as you want, but it has to position itself as this theatrical experience and not as like a game, because it's first, it's not really a game, right? It's a 30-minute thing, and like, but it's really like, how do we price it so that it covers the cost of the playthrough, but is also something that somebody would be willing to pay for an experience they can have one time. So that is the nut we're trying to crack right now in terms of launching this. But and your second question was to translating it to Unreal. We could, but I think we would have to basically rebuild everything. I think Unity is a little bit better when it comes to like getting like these external APIs in and stuff like that. So I think we just kind of went with that. But yeah, I think we could build it if we started over maybe. But does that answer your question? Sorry. Do you have any more? Yay.
You touched on this a little bit in the presentation, but it's a part that I found so interesting in our piece as well, like working with the constraints of the latency and how it kind of changed as you were building the experience and what your process was from like a creative point on testing how to work with it.
Yeah, I mean, latency honestly is like the issue. Like, if you go play the experience, you're gonna be like, you're gonna see it, right? Like, it's impossible to completely disguise a latency that's a few seconds long. But I think that through design, you can kind of circumvent a lot of the discomfort that comes from the latency, right? Because players will forgive a lot if there's things going on, right? So like if you're holding stuff, yeah, I have a sword in my hand, I said a thing, now I'm playing with the sword and now she responded, you know what I mean? Or like you have like the little indicators of like the character is thinking, or like letting the player look around and look at the set and have like sound effects going on and like different things like that really like kind of psychologically erases the latency a little bit. It's still very much there, but like for example, if you were to watch the whole experience without any background audio and just hearing the characters, the latency would be way more annoying. It's like kind of like, you know, but when you have everything kind of there together, you're immersed, you're in there, you forgive it like pretty easily and it kind of becomes part of it. You just kind of accept it as this is what's happening and you kind of forget about it after a while, you know? But yeah, I think it's just about like designing around these constraints and like getting creative with like, okay, so if we can't eliminate the latency, how do we distract them away from the latency? And asking questions like that.
So I wanted to ask how big the whole team was and then how long the whole process took. And I have a follow-up I'll get asked after.
Cool. Yeah. So we built this in just under a year, so like around 9 months. We started January of last year with that prototype that you saw, and then we put together a team around it and delivered the final version in December. So like within the year of 2025, which is very, very fast, but we had like, you know, we maybe at the biggest the team ever was about like 16 people, but then at different parts of the project, people would come in and out. So for example, the artists would come in, do all the art assets, and then we could put them on a different project at the end while we're still figuring out tech stuff when we don't need art anymore, right? So like there were different people coming in and out at different points in the process. So I think if you're gonna count like every single person who touched this project, it would be closer to like 30 people, you know, but at any one given time, probably like 15, 16, yeah.
So like, was it similar, I guess, to like an actual film production with like a pre and an actual production in the post, or well, I guess how you said it in the phases, so I guess in a way.
Yeah, so I think so it was more similar to like a video game kind of production, right? So you build a prototype because you want to find the fun and you want to figure out, does this work? So that's essentially kind of like our pre-production. And you already making a lot of design decisions during that stage as well. So like when you're building the prototype, you're saying, okay, like this is when we changed it to being the cage and you not being the king and all these things, while the batter is still raw enough that we can test those things really easily. Because the second that I build an entire town with all those characters and I go to my my art people and say, hey, guess what? It's not a town anymore. Now it's something else. Like you can't really do that, right? So like at one point in the production, during the prototyping stage, that's when like everything is being decided and you can like say, okay, like we're gonna have these characters, not those, like whatever. But once you get into production, that's our pre-production. You get into actual production, it's like, all right, time to make all these assets, time to like actually 3D model the characters and get the animator in doing the rigs and all the animations and things like that. At that point, you don't want to change a lot of like the main structure of the thing, right? So I think that's becomes a little more like a film, like, okay, now we just have to shoot the scenes, right? But in this particular case, there was a lot of iteration that had to happen throughout because we didn't know how to do it, right? So we had to kind of improvise, which is ironic because it's an improv game, but we had to improv a lot of the development of this as well and change a little bit how we think around making games and stuff like that.
And man, you said something about the Boys show. I'm a big fan of it, so I just wanted to ask about that.
Yes, that's like a different project in the company. We just launched in March. It's called The Boys Trigger Warning. It's a virtual reality game set in the universe of The Boys. We worked with the show creators. We have a bunch of the actors that came in and did the voices for their characters. So it's an adventure that's like canonical to The Boys. It takes place between seasons 4 and 5, but it's like a side story. So you're a different character in that world, but you know, there's Butcher and MM and like Homelander, everybody's there, but you're a character that only exists in the game. And yeah, you get to have superpowers in VR, which is awesome.
Anybody else have any other questions?
My question is, what's the future of gaming given this successful experiment? You know, you mentioned Westworld. Are we going in that direction? Is that possible? What's your overall take?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what we dream, right? Is like, imagine like you're playing Baldur's Gate or Skyrim or like a game like that, but like every character is very much like alive, right? And I don't think that that replaces things like that. So for example, Baldur's Gate took 11 years to make, and it has 17,000 endings and a million different writers who created the most beautifully worded story ever, right? And there's a lot of choice that you can do. I feel like that's a different type of experience. I think this type of experience would be more for a type of game where you're actually trying to see what influence you're having in the world, right? So if it's an open world RPG, I talked to this town here and I saved whatever, like this person's kid, and I brought him back and I completed that quest. Later in the game, that kid reappears and remembers that you did that or said that thing, right? Like, so it's like really about creating games that are way more responsive and cohesive in terms of the narrative as a whole, because it's responding to what you're doing exactly. And there's not like a limitation as to where it can go. So I think, to me, the future of games is going to be a mix. It's not going to be just games that have this technology in it, because I think that there's still very much a place for me as a gamer. I want to play the Baldur's Gates. I want to see the like human written dialogue games as well. You know what I mean? I don't think it's about, oh, this is going to replace those types of games. I think it's really about a new product category emerging, and like people who are into this kind of thing of like, let me go like mess around. I want to try to go in and pretend that I'm, you know, I don't know, the tax collector of the realm, and I'm going to see if I can frame the king for the murder. Like, you know, it's like really like, let me see if I can do this thing and see what happens. It's like that type of gamer, right, that we're kind of targeting with this, which I think can have a Venn diagram overlap with gamers who are really into like RPGs that are more narrative and stuff. But I think it's also like a different muscle in a way, right, as a gamer. But yeah, I think they're gonna coexist, and it's gonna be really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. I
Cool.
think that was all our questions.
All right, it's a wrap. Thank you guys. Wow, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Sorry, I've always meant to say that. No, that was really fun. Thank you.
And lastly,
Thank you everyone for coming on out to our Machine Learning Monday tonight. This is our first one on interactive and immersive media. So thank you guys. Typically we usually have it as well on traditional cinema, but we're very much excited to expand into like more other mediums that are using machine learning as well. So thank you again. And lastly, if everyone wouldn't mind, we'd love to take a group photo with everyone. So we'd love to invite you guys to come on to the front. And Nacy, if you could help bring up the Canva slide.